आइए अभी हम सीधा रुख करते हैं संसद का, जहां पर इस वक्त विदेश मंत्री बयान दे रहे हैं।
Evacuation process made a substantial difference in the ease of border crossing and the care taken of our citizens thereafter. The most challenging part of the evacuation exercise was that of evacuating Indian nationals from Kharkiv and Sumy. Both the places witnessed heavy shelling and airstrikes. Many options were worked out to evacuate students through buses and trains. A team from our embassy in Moscow had also been sent to the Russia-Ukraine border to facilitate the possible evacuation of Indian students through Belgorod and Kursk. Many students from Kharkiv were moved to Pesochin in view of anticipated escalation of hostilities. While our efforts were able to stave off some of the more extreme scenarios, their presence in a safety zone allowed for subsequent ferrying through buses to the western borders. The Sumy evacuation, which was the last one on a significant scale, was also extremely complex as our students faced the prospect of being caught in crossfire. Their evacuation from the city needed a credible ceasefire, a daunting challenge in the current situation. This finally materialized, Chairman Sir, due to the personal intervention of the Prime Minister himself with the Presidents of Ukraine and Russia. Noting the extraordinary challenges before us, we also dispatched a special team of senior officers to the vicinity of Sumy. Their coordination with the military forces deployed there, with the ICRC and the arrangement of logistics was responsible for the final outcome. During the entire period, our embassy in Ukraine has been working incessantly to contact Indian nationals, arranging and facilitating transport, coordinating with local authorities, providing food, etc. Throughout the evacuation exercise, our embassy was in constant touch with the Ukrainian authorities. We appreciate their positive response to our requests during this period. Their intervention was responsible for running additional trains needed for the evacuation exercise. The embassy also provided travel documents within a very, very short time in cases where Indian nationals had lost their passports. They also partnered with neighboring embassies to resolve challenging situations on the border. On 13th March, in view of the rapidly deteriorating security situation in Ukraine, including attacks in its western part, it was decided to temporarily relocate the Indian embassy in Ukraine to Poland. This situation will be reassessed in light of further developments. Honourable members should also recognize the great contribution made by community representatives, volunteers and NGOs in the evacuation exercise. Equally noteworthy were the efforts of Indian businesses in the countries neighbouring Ukraine and indeed in Ukraine itself. In numerous ways, they assisted in the transport, shelter and sustenance of the evacuating students. They ensured that our citizens did not become a burden for Ukraine's neighbours who were receiving so many other refugees at that time. The nation owes them a debt. In line with India's principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, foreign nationals were also evacuated from conflict zones and brought to India. They included about 150 citizens, 147 to be exact, of 18 countries. Among them are immediate neighbours like Bangladesh and Nepal. Many of the Ukrainian nationals that were family members of Indian nationals have also been evacuated. We also provided free passage to Ukrainian nationals from India to Poland in our evacuation flights. In response to the emerging humanitarian situation, India has provided relief supplies to Ukraine and its neighbouring countries. A total of 90 tons of relief material comprising medicines, tents, blankets, sleeping mats, tarpaulins, surgical gloves and eye goggles have been provided. Honourable members are aware that at Kharkiv, Naveen Shekarappa Gyangaudar, a final year medical student of Kharkiv Medical University, lost his life. He tragically succumbed to injuries received when he had gone to fetch groceries from a shop. We deeply mourn his untimely demise. Our prayers are with his family and his loved ones. Our embassy in Ukraine is diligently pursuing the repatriation of his mortal remains to India. I would also like to mention the assistance provided to another Indian national, Harjot Singh, who suffered bullet injuries on his way out from Kiev. His medical expenses were taken care of and arrangements made for his movement from Kiev to the Polish border. He was brought back in an IAF flight to India, accompanied by a doctor arranged by our mission in Poland. Chairman, sir, the unfolding developments in Ukraine have simultaneously played out in the United Nations, in particular the Security Council, where India is serving as a non-permanent member. India's position on the Ukraine conflict has been steadfast and consistent. We have expressed deep concern at the worsening situation and called for immediate cessation of violence and end to all hostilities. Our statements at the Security Council and the General Assembly have urged an urgent ceasefire and ensuring safe passage for stranded civilians. We have also highlighted the humanitarian assistance extended by India to Ukraine and its neighbors at this hour of crisis. We have reiterated at the highest levels of our leadership to all parties concerned that there is no other choice but the path of diplomacy and dialogue. We have emphasized to all member states of the UN that the global order is anchored on international law, UN Charter, and respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. The Ukraine conflict has major economic implications. Its impact on energy and commodity prices is already visible. The disruption of global supply chain is expected to be significant. India has substantial dealings with both Russia and Ukraine. An assessment in this regard by the government is underway. However, the House will appreciate that there is all the more need for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Operation Ganga is a testimony of our commitment to ensure that Indians in distress situations abroad can count on their government. We have shown this on numerous occasions before, but rarely in one as challenging as the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. I am confident that the honourable members of the House would join me in commending the efforts of the Government of India, the officials of the Ministry of External Affairs, particularly the concerned embassies, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, the Ministry of Defence, NDRF, the Indian Air Force, private airlines, and all those who work tirelessly and selflessly for the safe return of our nationals from Ukraine. I would also like to convey our sincerest appreciation and gratitude to the local Indian communities in these countries, to civil society, to volunteer organizations. However, what is most noteworthy is the courage and determination of our young students in Ukraine, some of whom had to face very difficult, even traumatic situations in active conflict zones. Honourable members, these are undeniably challenging times, but the House may rest assured that whether it is our approach to the political situation, the implications for the economy, or the welfare of Indians abroad, our government will respond with the confidence, diligence, and responsibility that has been our hallmark. Thank you.
Now, clarifications on the
आप सुन रहे
statement.
थे विदेश मंत्री एस जयशंकर को, जो कि ब्यौरा दे रहे थे कि ऑपरेशन गंगा किस तरीके से हुआ। उन्होंने ये भी बताया कि अपने नागरिकों को लाना एक चुनौती रही, उसके साथ ही कई ऐसे लोगों को भी लाया गया जो दूसरे देशों के नागरिक थे और उसकी सफलता के बारे में वो बता रहे थे।